Hello and welcome to the Film Ireland podcast. I'm Gemma Creagh and I'm chatting with Claire Dix, the director of the hilariously dark comedy Sunlight. Thank you so much for chatting with us. It's a really, really beautiful film that you have made. I was just wondering, I know Ailbhe Keogan and yourself have worked together before on Taking Me Swimming, and that did exceptionally well on the festival circuits. That has really kind of lived on in the world when it comes to shorts and remains to be quite popular. Just tell me a little bit about your creative relationship with her. How did you guys meet? Was it for that short or?
Well, I knew Ailbhe. We were friends anyway. I met her a long time ago now, probably over 15 years ago. Both our husbands are friends actually, and we kind of met her through my husband a long time ago down in Tralee. But yeah, we'd never worked together. And then I started working with Roisin Geraghty, who produced actually both Take Me Swimming and Sunlight as well. So we made a documentary together, and working with Roisin was just amazing. And I was like, well, I have to hang on to this person because, it takes a lot. It took me a long time to find, I suppose, a creative partner who I clicked with on every kind of level.
It's like dating. That's why I'm very intrigued to how, how kind of collaborative relationships go, because like that, I mean, it might suit one project, but it might not necessarily suit indefinitely. So
exactly. And I've worked with some amazing producers in the past, and just for various reasons, maybe one person wanted to go one way and the other person wanted, so it didn't kind of last but I kind of knew with Roisin that, I was like, well, do you want to make something again? She said, yeah, do you? So, and then Ailbhe sent me a treatment. I kind of, at that stage, I sort of felt, I mean, I love short films and I love making them, but I kind of felt like, I think maybe I need to maybe kind of move on a little bit here. So I kind of wasn't looking to make another short actually, but then she sent me, and I don't think Ailbhe had ever written a short film that was made before that actually. I think she kind of went straight into features as far as I know. But she had written a treatment. Her mother had recently passed away, and I think she had a lot, and she had an uncle of hers who she was close to, who unfortunately had Alzheimer's, and she was kind of, I suppose she was in a lot of conversations with her cousins around care, and there was a lot of things kind of going on in that idea of choosing the time of your own exit and around death. So she wrote a treatment for Take Me Swimming, and she sent it to me, and she said, would you be interested in making this? And I just read it and went, wow, yes, I would. And I actually had read some of her scripts, not to direct, but just because she had sent them to me just out of interest, and they were always such amazing reads. I'm always saying to her, I wish people could read your script. I wish you could just publish more scripts, because they're absolutely beautiful reads, So then I said to Roisin, would you be interested in this? And she read it and said yes. So that's how that started. And then after Take Me Swimming, I suppose we just kind of wanted to work together again, and that's kind of where Sunlight came out of.
Oh, brilliant. And tell me a little bit about Sunlight. That was one of the was that a POV scheme?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. So tell me a little bit about your experience, because I think we had spoken a little bit before with Antonia Campbell Hughes. I think she did one around the same time. I'm just like, it is, because it isn't, even though the film looks like AF and you would not think about it, it's just not the budget that maybe like you would think that it should have.
Yeah.
In many ways. So just tell me a little bit about but it's also a development scheme as much so as normally you apply for production funding. So just what's your experience going through that? Did you kind of workshop the script more in that? Then what's the story then when you kind of go into production? Do you have to have, because it's a mentorship scheme sort of as much as it is a production scheme, do you kind of like work with them on the production end of things, or do they kind of send you off when the script is happy? I'm just very curious to like the practicalities of that.
Yeah, so I mean, it was a fantastic scheme. God, I don't even remember what year it was now. It seems like a long time ago. Because of COVID, came right in the middle of it, and just everything just got, as sure, look, it extended everything out. So, but yeah, so we applied for that with a treatment as well. So it wasn't even so that had to go through a whole scripting development stage. So there was I think maybe 7 teams selected for development And there was kind of a couple of development days that we did where screenwriters set up, and they were fantastic. Actually, it was just really nice to meet everybody, because you don't often get to meet other directors and writers, so that was really nice. Just kind of got a couple of days.
And actually, just in case people don't know, POV is a woman-led scheme, so it's designed specifically to support women filmmakers doing the transition from shorts to features. So it is like it's a cool safe space to meet other specifically women filmmakers and producers and be in the room. So it's just
absolutely
like that's the angle.
And I think it was because I've been asked before, do you feel like you only got it because you were a woman, you only got to make it. And I remember talking to people around the time, and there were a few people actually in the industry as well who I was talking to, and were saying, yeah, is that fair? And I was like, well, it's been very unfair for a very long time.
For all of time.
For all of time, exactly. So I think
of time.
Team is okay. Yeah. I mean, look, I get the point. Like, you don't want to, it's every single year it's only women who are allowed to apply for these low budgets. Absolutely not. But I think it is okay to have one of them, and try and address that imbalance. Because the other thing that it did for me, actually, it just felt kind of like, okay, this is an opportunity that you can't turn down. Because I think a huge problem one of the things I would struggle with is confidence in my abilities. And that probably is because I'm a woman as well. And because, it's not even a film industry thing. It's like a societal thing. It's the way we're brought up. It's the way, just different subliminal messages I think you get when you're growing up. That's no one's fault exactly. But so I think this scheme was kind of like, come on, please apply, so that was, and even in the interview, I think I spoke a lot about being a parent and how I took a long time out of working in film and TV because I wanted to bring up my kids. And I feel that's been a huge barrier as well, kind of getting back into the industry again after a long time not making anything. So I think POV was brilliant in that respect as well, that I was able to kind of talk about all that stuff and be honest about all that stuff. And it just felt like a really kind of open door, So that scheme was there. We applied, we got it, went on a development kind of couple of days with a lot of other teams. And then from that, they selected 4 projects. And then there was again, though, there was a big development sort of stage around that, mainly with Ailbhe, though, because I wasn't writing the film. So I suppose I was definitely, I was aware of what was going on, and Ailbhe and I would talk a lot, and I was involved in the development, but like I wasn't writing it, she was writing it. So it was very much Ailbhe then for quite a long time developing the script, and we could all choose a mentor, or we could all choose someone that we would like Screen Ireland to approach on our behalf. So, and you could producers, directors, and writers obviously were encouraged to do it. All the HODs, though, once we got into production, were entitled to a mentor. So, some of them did, some of them didn't. I think some of them, maybe we had some like, our production designer is amazing, and she took a mentorship because she was kind of quite new into the industry. Maybe some of the people who had been around the block a few times probably didn't. But so it was very, very, very supportive the whole way through.
That's very nice, actually, because like a lot of the arguments are, you've a first time feature director, so we're going to pair you with a really established DOP. And then you have to go with that. And instead of actually you let everybody figure it out, but have the supports together, because I think that's, because as well, I think when someone's so established, you can, there's also a dynamic where you're like, you kind of can get railroaded, I think, a little bit as well, where people are going, do this is better. And you're like, but I feel creatively it isn't, but because of your experience, I kind of feel like I have to now, because if it goes wrong, very silly. So I don't know. So I do think those relationships are lovely, and to encourage and cultivate people of the same level, but like to kind of take that step up together is actually wonderful.
Yeah, it was great. So like Marion Van Male shot it, and he'd be very experienced. So I felt, I worked with him before, so I felt that we were a good partnership anyway, and I think he really got the project, and he really got the style that we wanted to go with.
Your film is so gorgeous, but he did You Are Not My Mother as well, was that?
He did, yes, he did. Yeah, Kate's film. Yeah, beautiful. So so like he would have been, he was very experienced, so I felt in safe hands. But but there was other crew members and HODs who weren't, but I saw the work, trusted them, had great conversations, and I felt, well, they have the mentor scheme there as well, so they were able to kind of tap into that if they wanted. So we had a mix. Yeah.
So, but I mean, it allows people as well to bring people up if you were, and as well if you like working with someone on shorts and maybe you couldn't justify it. So it's actually a lovely
Yeah.
thing to
Yeah.
offer. So tell me then about you get to the script stage, you guys are ready, you have mentors if you feel like you want them, you've put together your shooting. When did COVID hit then and ruin it all?
Yeah. So like we were supposed to shoot in August 2020. So that whole year was just weird anyway, obviously. But for us, it was kind of like we were ticking along as if, we're shooting in August. What's this virus thing? Like we didn't really say until very late that, yeah, we can't. We couldn't admit it to ourselves, I think, for a very long time that we just weren't going to be able to film. For a few, now, like I know Kate did shoot in the October of that year and Antonia shot January 2021. And that was like major lockdown when she was shooting. Like, I'd say
hers was a very solitary film though. There wasn't like lots of beautiful joyous shots of crowds and people on the streets and things.
See, I think they could probably contain, because they're in Donegal, it was countryside, so they were able to manage it. And I think fair play to them, because I know it wasn't easy. I think that's I love that film. That's an amazing film. She did a fantastic job. So, hats off, because, just even, and not even, I suppose, because you're like, what are your sets going to look like? But it's also just the kind of, for the crew and managing all the testing and all the, just the scariness of it. So, and just, are we shooting? I know they had a trouble with like, are we shooting tomorrow? Are we, so there was all that. So we see, but anyway, so we were kind of being encouraged to go out and shoot in August, but we kind of felt for the type of film we wanted to make, Dublin was a big feature part of the texture of the film, real people on the streets. We wanted to rope in as extras. We wanted it to have that kind of feel. We just wouldn't have got that, like, I don't even think we would have got access to any of the flats. I don't think the council would have let us in, so, and that was another massive part. We had to have, all that access. So unfortunately, we weren't, and we would have loved to have been out and shot, because we would have got our pick of crew because no one was working. Whereas instead we had to, we were battling to get anyone then when we actually did, because everyone else was filming at the same time. So, because we shot like exactly a year later. So COVID was a pain. But so it pushes by a whole year.
So tell me, like, there was a bunch of false starts there. How did that affect the planning? Was it that you guys left it so that you knew 100% it was going to go, or did you have like a couple of, maybe we'll aim for this?
No, we had a few false starts. To do with availability of cast as well. And again, you see, because like we had pushed from, like, we'd cancelled it and then, or postponed it, and then things were opening up, so people were getting offered jobs that they hadn't worked for a whole year. So we couldn't say, oh no, you can't take that really well paid job, because you said you do our tiny pay, so you couldn't deny people. So we pushed twice then, because I think we were supposed to go like April, and then maybe we pushed to June, and then it ended up being August. So we had two other false starts.
God. And it is tough locking people down, because when the big money comes, like, you can't expect,
you can't say, and so we were losing people left, right and center to big pay jobs, which, and I was saying, no hard feelings, go for it, because you haven't worked for a year and a half or a year, so you can't say no. But I must say, like, we were so lucky that, like, Drew Maitland, my first AD, who was just like, I just can't imagine making a film without him, because he was on Take Me Swimming as well, and he's absolutely fantastic. So and he stayed with us, and I'll be eternally grateful to Drew and Narian, because they must have been offered jobs as well, like left, right and center, but they stuck with us with every single date push. They stayed. So
that is very nice.
Because
PPs are in very high demand. I mean, everyone is. Everyone.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about how you go about kind of curating it, the visuals of it. Is it something that when you read the script, you clearly picture it? Is it something that you find with your DOP and production designer and sit down and have discussions? Like, what's your process?
So with this, it can be different with every project, but with this one, it really came from Leon. It's like, who is this guy? What's the energy that he's bringing to it? And he really suggested kind of the way to go. And I spoke to Nari, and we watched a lot of different, reference films. We were passing kind of mood boards back and forth. And we had a long time to do that, because we had the whole year. Well, we kind of knew very early on from one of the first conversations I had with him. Then we started passing references back and forth, and we were very clear, I think, once he read the script as well, about that kind of look was what we were going for. And it was all driven by who Leon was. This kind of erratic, kind of ping pong, you know, flying by the seat of your pants kind of DIY kind of buzz that Leon has. So we wanted to bring that into the look and the style and the filming and the sound. So when it came even to talking to the composers, Leon was, and the music that Seamus Fogarty and Barry actually wrote together for the end track was a massive influence for the whole soundtrack. So Matt and Steve Shannon and Matt Nolan, who did the soundtrack, took all the work that the lads had created in Barry's shed during lockdown, which was one advantage of the whole year because Barry and Seamus got to write tons of music as Leon, and the composers took all those and kind of used that as their references, and they even took like stems from tracks and laid them in and worked with them for the soundtrack. So it's almost kind of Leon is just all over the film sort of thing.
It's fun. I actually had a note to ask you about that because I was like, there's such a kind of unusual, funny, like playfulness that like used throughout the sound as well, which is gorgeous because again, like the themes underneath it are quite heavy, but it's kind of propped up by the lightness of the characters, the humor, and then all those like lovely kind of visuals, and again that brilliant sound mix, like because you're watching in the beginning and you're like, what is this?
What is this? Is this good? Is this shit?
I don't know.
Which is all, and it was a bit of a gamble because it was like, is Leon talented or is he terrible? And he's just going for it and he's just doesn't care. And that's kind of a lot of the style of the whole film, I think, is a bit like that. So it was, and you know, it has been divisive. Like we've got like some people who love it and some people who really don't get it, you know. And we kind of knew that was the way we were going. You know, it was there was a lot of risky things with this film because first of all, the theme, like euthanasia, like it's a film about friendship, but euthanasia is obviously a massive theme in it. So we kind of knew from the word go we were going to annoy some people and irk some people and get maybe not the best reviews from some people, you know, because that just is a very, and maybe even the way we were handling it, I kind of knew, okay, we're not going for a weighty film. We're going for a very kind of irreverent kind of humor sort of take on it, which is going to piss some people off, and it has. And even in the style of it, the style of the film, as well, you know, we kind of knew that's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. But it kind of had to be like that. I think if it had been a very kind of neatly composed, kind of locked off, it just wouldn't have worked with who Leon was. Well, for me, I would have felt like, we're missing this kind of dynamic energy that Leon naturally has or something, you know. So a lot of the film, in a way, was a bit of a play, bit of a experiment, and I think some things worked, some things didn't. I've learned a lot from it actually, about what to do next, what not to do next. But I'm glad we went with that. It was an interesting process and a really, really fun way to make it actually.
And if you think of the like how it was received, which I mean, I think is generally being positive. Like you're never going to annoy people, and I do think if people kind of feel annoyed enough to like really talk about it, you've struck a nerve, and I think that's as powerful as, like, I mean, the worst thing would be if it kind of faded into nothingness, but the fact that you elicited an emotional response means that there was something deep in that person, that they're responding to the content of your work, which is really, I think, kind of a testament.
Yes, and we have got mixed reviews, you know, but like some people absolutely love it, you know, and so, but again, like, just sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I think we knew that was probably going to happen, but you know, we didn't want to shy away from that at the same time.
In a previously Catholic country, like
but even it's funny because it's not even, because I think we as a country have moved on a huge amount, you know. So I think euthanasia, a lot of people, you know, are talking about it now, discussing it. It's probably another very, very divisive, sorry, it is of course a very, very divisive topic, but I think it's more even in the way it's handled in this film is what kind of annoyed some people. But I think we stand by it, you know.
Yeah, and it's really beautiful, but I think it's the humor that helps process the pain, and I love to watch those weighty subjects tackled. Like, I mean, you do go to the emotional heart of who these very funny characters are, and funny people pass on as well, and it's that kind of loss and acceptance is sort of at the core of what it is. But I think it just makes it a really watchable film that you're enjoying it the whole way through. You're on board, so you're not, you get the message, you get the emotional thought behind it, but you're not like, Like, oh God, at the end of it.
I know, and I
Oh,
don't like that was one thing we were like, oh, if we're making a film with euthanasia as a massive theme, like I don't want to make a big, heavy, weighty. I just don't think, yeah, and also I don't think it's a very Irish way to handle it. Maybe I think that that kind of irreverency and that kind of dark sense of humor, I think, is more kind of it feels more natural. I think for these characters anyway, that's how they would deal with this. Making a joke of it. But they love each other, and you see that, and it's not like they're flippant about death. But I think that is how they can handle the emotion by opening themselves up, but then making a joke at the same time. That to me feels real.
and how was it shooting in the flats as well,
Oh,
lugging all
amazing.
the equipment up the
Oh
stairs?
God, I know. Yeah.
I was looking at it and I was like, oh, I was like,
How
I
many
could
flights of
see.
stairs? Yeah. Hats off to the camera department for that. And the lighting guys. Yeah, but it was brilliant shooting there. We had such support from like the block we were in was kind of there were some people still living there, and there was a lot of vacant, like they're all Dolphin's Barn is obviously being, a lot of those flats being torn down and rebuilt. So it was kind of in a transition period when we were there. But luckily the building and the demolition there was a window, so we got in. But one of the blocks is totally like that where Clegg's supposedly deals from is kind of totally boarded up and abandoned, and then Leon's block was kind of perpendicular to that, and there's some people there, but the people who were living there were just so amazing. And they were like, oh, can we be in it? And so there was like bits where we have the bonfire. A lot of the kids, were, living there. So they came along to that. And I think they're really used to film crews because they were all like, not a bother. Like you didn't have to say, don't look in the camera. They were all like pros, So, but they were very welcoming and just, yeah, amazing to work with. Yeah.
Great. And just you were saying about getting rights from Dublin City Council. Is that a bit of a slog to kind of get agreement? Do you have to like show scripts? Is it just like an application process that you say dates and
Yes.
if it's
So
available?
there's a film officer there. God, what is her name? She's an amazing person. I can't remember her name. Roisin would have been dealing with her, but she is fantastic. And like they would help you find location. No, they've been brilliant. Like now there is obviously a process because you have to, yeah, let them know what you're doing and but they've been really really helpful. And they were saying like, look, we'll help you as much as we can. Now, obviously you have to do the legwork yourself as well and go out and find them, but there was absolutely, I think once the locals were on board as well, obviously people who are living there have to agree to it. But yeah, so there's a bit of paperwork, it's a bit of a process, but yeah, we found it very accommodating. Yeah.
Brilliant. That's nice to know that the supports are
Yeah.
there
Oh
if
no,
people like it.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
then you said you had learned a lot. What would be some of the things that maybe you pass on that might help other, like what would be if you were telling people you're like, never do this?
Yeah, and it's funny, isn't it? So particular to every project as well, because at the end of every project, I'm like, oh God, I'm never doing that again, or I must remember this again.
Is it like childbirth, though? Do you sort of forget about it then after a while, and you're like, "Oh no, no, I'll definitely cast only children and animals from now on. It's the story is too strong. It'll be fine this time." Like,
Exactly. Well, I actually no problem working with children and animals, and I know you're not supposed to, but like I have only had positive. Like I know it slows everything down, and actually, it's probably more of a pain on the production team than it is on me, But yeah, horses are difficult to work with though. I would rather not work with horses again, actually. But they do look amazing. So then you're in the end like, wow, yeah, definitely want to work with horses again. So, and it's funny, like even like I love working on with boats and water, like so, because we had like fire on water and all that. Like, I think if you've got the right crew and you do a lot of prep, all that kind of stuff is manageable. Enough prep, give yourself enough time and get the right people, all that stuff is manageable. I wouldn't shy away from doing that. But I do think it always comes back to this, and some people don't have this problem because this is very probably personal, but what I have learned is to, and I keep saying this to myself, is to trust your gut. And I know that's such a cliche, and there's probably younger filmmakers probably don't have this problem, but I think it's been a massive thing for me in my career is just be confident in yourself and trust your gut. Because then if you do make a mistake, at least it's your mistake. And it's not you going, God, I knew I shouldn't have done that. Or I knew I had a feeling, but I just went along with what everyone else was saying. Because that's the worst feeling,
yeah,
is like knowing that you knew that thing that everyone said was going to be okay wasn't okay, but you went along with it because you just trusted everyone else instead of yourself. So I do think, like you know, that, and I suppose as a director, you have to do that because everyone's relying on you to do that. And it's not the way you can kind of just bulldoze through everyone else's ideas. So there's a kind of a balancing act, I think, between going, okay, this is the way I want to do it, right? And being polite about, you know, and respectful. I'll listen to you, but I don't want to be convinced by you if I still have this feeling in my gut that this isn't actually the right way to go. So I think that's something I've been, and learning the kind of filmmaker that you are. You know, what are the stories that you want to tell? What do you what do you want to say? I think that's something maybe that I am kind of learning as well, is really, really important, that you can stand over the work and that you're happy, because even if it isn't well received, that you say, well, I still can stand over it. I'm still happy that I made it. You know, I think that's another important thing. And also that you carry relationships on to the next work, I think is important, to respect the people you're working with, and learn who do you click with. Okay, maybe it didn't work out with this person, maybe it's just a bit of a clash, but to try and find those creative partnerships, because I think they will sustain you through it.
That's some really lovely advice, because it was a long process as well, because of COVID and because everything was drawn out so well. And do you feel like anything changed as it was evolving, from from once you kind of have your finished script, because I kind of even think like the world sort of changed, in many ways, like the industry sort of changed a little bit. I'm just wondering, like, did that feed back into the project? Do you feel like it's a slightly different one coming out than went in?
I think they're always different coming out than when they go in. I think they're never the film that you think you're making. Yeah, it's funny though. It sort of more or less stay the same. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I think the music became a huge part of it. I didn't think the music was going to be I didn't think there was going to be so much music in it, to be honest, even though I know Leon's a musician, but I didn't think the soundtrack was going to be so much a feature until I think Barry and Seamus had that year in Barry's shed working on Leon's music, and just the stuff that was coming out was amazing. So I was like, God, this has to feature more, it's just so much a part of who Leon is. So that was definitely one thing that changed. Like there was always tweaks to the story, but I don't think anything major story-wise changed. Well, yeah, there was a scene at the end that got cut out, but that probably would have happened anyway. See, we were just so prepared. It was mad. Like we were so prepared to go in 2020, and then we had a whole other year to think about things that it was probably just that those small little bits that we tweaked along the way, but nothing massive, no.
And in the edit, did any darlings have to hit the floor? You said you were prepped. Were you like very happy with the way visually it was there? Was there anything you had to play with pacing wise, or go back and get like inserts for?
What did we do? We had one small reshoot. Sorry, I'm trying to think. Yeah, more or less it was, we had to let go of one supporting character, which was a real shame, because so all her scenes had to go, which was a pity. It was just kind of tonally, there was something not working, actually.
Wow. Yeah.
That was hard. That was a hard decision to make, because she kind of fed through the whole script in a way. So it just was an issue with the tone, and it had to go. And that was difficult. So that was a difficult decision, but I think it was the right one.
Timing wise, it was great. Like it was, like you wouldn't have wanted any more or less. The pace was perfect as it was. So I'm curious if there was a whole extra person.
Yeah, I know. I think it probably was dragging it down a bit, maybe kind of dragging everything out when it wasn't needed. Like Ailbhe's amazing for writing in all these kind of side characters that have their own little story and relationship to the main character, and they always thread through. And I remember Tony, when the editor's saying, oh my God, when Ailbhe's writing, it's like you're trying to unweave, like you can't just lob a scene out because it affects all these other things. So that was a job, for the editor to deal with all that. I think it's a lot pacier than I actually imagined it would be. I think it became quite pacey in the edit. I didn't think it was going to be as kind of as it was, even though I know Leon's, his character asks for that, but I kind of felt it was a slower film in my head, funnily enough, than what it actually turned out to be. But I think that's where the editors, both Alec and Tony, kind of brought that, no, we need to kind of, get things moving here, and bring that sense of urgency. I think at certain moments, you kind of need to feel like, okay, let's get Leon, especially after the show for Iver that kind of ends, that we kind of need to pick up the pace there. And yeah, so they brought that to it.
Because again, it was just perfect timing. You're kind of with them the whole way. There's like that life and energy, and then like for those emotional moments, it kind of slows down and you get into the beat of the characters, and that is a lovely watch as well.
I mean, we were so lucky that that we have the Fontaines track kind of slap bang in the middle. We kind of really wanted, originally I remember we were saying, oh, let's have it a totally Dublin soundtrack that we have only, Dublin music on it from Dublin based bands. And that's the only one actually that we were able to get. But we were so honored to be able to include that. That was fantastic.
So it was something that was in the mix for so long, and then you go into the edit. When is it like are you still sort of involved? Are you still involved in marketing? Are you still kind of like in that headspace, or is there a point where you go, oh, that was a great project, now I have to start looking for the next one that I work on, or and start having those discussions? Or is it something that you put out of your head until basically it's kind of, you've done all your press interviews with the likes of me?
No, we started. We optioned a short fit. When did we start on Orange World? We've another project that we're in development with now that was a few years ago. Actually, it was before even Sunlight was made. I read the story and I was looking for the option for that. I think that's another thing I've kind of learned over the years, is you kind of have to have a few things kind of going. And I think I like to work like that. I like to have a few other things kind of bubbling away, or that you obviously then as it gets nearer to the shoot, you have to be 100% in whatever you're in. But I kind of like to have a few other things that I'm thinking about. It just kind of helps me not obsess as well over one project. I think it's kind of nice to be able to jump around a little bit, because they don't all work out either. That's the other thing. Like, so if you have all your eggs in one basket and then that doesn't work out, it's like, oh, I've nothing else to fall back on. So we were talking about Orange World before Sunlight was shot, and then we got the option for that last year, and that's kind of where my head is. Because when once the film is done, I just want to forget about it. I kind of just go, okay, can we just move on now? And I was talking to another filmmaker recently, and he was almost giving me a bollocking. He was like, you have to, come on, you have to get your stuff together now. This is in the cinemas. You need to get your ass out there and, promote it. And I know I do, but I'm not the best at it. I'm better letting other people talk about it, I think. But so yeah, so we've another one in production, or not production, Jesus, in very, very early script stages. But it's just kind of nice to have that, as a possibility. Who knows? It may or may not get made. I have no idea, but we'll keep chugging with it anyway.
Hugging along. God, that's brilliant. And still in cinemas.
Yeah.
Do you have any plans for streaming release or VOD?
Well, that would be the next thing, yeah. So Wildcard, our distributors, they're fantastic. Jill and Patrick, lovely to work with, actually. And that's the next stage. So I don't know what the plan is yet. But that will be the next phase, yeah.
Great. Well, keep us in the loop, because the more eyeballs on this, the better, because it's enjoyable, it's warm, it's funny, and yeah, there's some banging tunes. I love that Barry Rockwell himself. Yeah. Hear them in a shed at the back, man. Shed. I love that. Like, that makes it even better.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for chatting with us.
Oh, thanks a million, Gemma. Thank you.